It's round 2 of England versus Wales in the Rugby World Cup warm-ups. Very different teams, but will it be the same result? My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. England versus Wales is the second time in 2 weeks that these two are facing off against each other. This one is in Twickenham Stadium in London. It's on Saturday 12th of August and kickoff is 5:30 BST. We'll quickly run down through both teams before we chat a little further. So starting with England, fullback is Freddie Stewart, right wing Henry Arundel. The centres Joe Marchant and Ollie Lawrence. Left wing is Elliot Daly. Halfbacks Owen Farrell and Jack Van Portfleet. Front row Joe Marler, Jamie George and Will Stewart. Second row Maro Toji and George Martin. The back row, Courtney Laws, Ben Earl and Billy Vunipola. On the bench then we got Theo Dan, Ellis Genge, Dan Cole, Johnny Hill, Jack Willis, Ben Youngs, George Ford and Max Malins. The Welsh team then, fullback Liam Williams, right wing Josh Adams, centres Joe Roberts and Nick Tompkins. Left wing is Tom Rogers. Halfbacks Owen Williams and Tomas Williams. Front row Gareth Thomas, Dewi Lake and Thomas Francis. Second row, Rhys Davis and Adam Beard. Back row, Dan Lydiate, Tommy Reffel and Tane Plumtree. On the bench then they have Sam Parry, Kemsley Mathias, Dylan Lewis, Christ Yunza, Tane Basham, Kieran Hardy, Dan Bigger and Kieran Williams. So these two played last week. It was 20 points to 9 to Wales, but that doesn't really tell all the story. Like Wales were pretty much on top for a lot of the game. Like England early on, they kind of looked like they had some penetration, but silly mistakes meant that, moves are breaking down. But you can see that there were patterns there that could maybe stretch defenses, but the accuracy just wasn't there from the players. Wales very aggressive at the breakdown, and like the likes of Jack Morgan as the captain really did the job. I think that hit on Pearson really was emblematic of the kind of rise of Wales now, and maybe England kind of starting to lose their way again under Borthwick. So it was kind of interesting with that one. And I felt, that Wales suddenly started looking like a team. And when you look at the pool that they have in the Rugby World Cup, you've got Fiji, who'll be a decent side, but you would expect Wales to beat them. Not saying they're going to, but you would expect them to beat them. And then you've got Australia, who picked such a young, inexperienced team. So looking at that pool, like if you're Australia or you're Wales or you're Fiji, you're thinking there's real opportunity there for you. And if you get out of the pool and you go into the quarterfinals, looking at that side of the draw, there aren't that many really strong teams, and you would actually fancy, get out of your pool, maybe make a semi-final at least, and that's what's on, available to both of these teams because they're both on the same side of the draw. But Wales, last week kind of did the show that they're kind of progressing now a bit more than England after the Wales camp has been absolutely in disarray. So people retiring, people being left out for, explained reasons that made absolutely no sense, including like KPIs and stuff like this, that the person actually did better than anyone else in their position. So, now it looks like Wales suddenly going to do what, I've got that feeling about them, is that disarray before the tournament, get there, build into it, and suddenly, end up in a semi-final. That's what I've been saying for a long time, and I still think that. But let's look at the two teams in a little bit more in depth. So England, like you got Freddie Stewart there, he's definitely going to be the starter if fit at fullback. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. That that 15 jersey has been his for a very long time now, or feels like a very long time. Henry Arundel, very exciting player on the wing, loves to counter-attack, give him even a millimeter of space and he's going to try and skin you, and then just make you look silly as well with his footwork. So very exciting player. Not sure whether he's going to be, someone that Borthwick will trust to start a big game in the Rugby World Cup. Those games against Japan and Argentina are going to be key for England. Whether he gets to start in those, it'll kind of tell you a little bit about what Borthwick feels in terms of his trust in him, and what will also, I think, not just Arundel So we mentioned a few here. Arundel, I think Merchant and Lawrence as well. Who else then? So Marcus Smith as well is not in the squad. But those kind of players, whether they get picked, it seems to be for England like that. The coach will decide to be kind of go with it, a more kind of trusted. So maybe an Anthony Watson there, and then if something goes wrong in their first big game, then there'll be calls for the likes of Arundel and Marcus Smith and stuff to come into the team, and then if the coach is picking them, then it kind of tells you that they didn't trust them to start initially, and now they're kind of under pressure to do so. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I think that this is a very attacking side, but Arundel definitely one to watch in this game. Again, I'm not sure how much game time he's going to see in the Rugby World Cup. I hope a lot. Then the centre pairing, Joe Merchant and Ollie Lawrence, I think is probably the most attacking centre partnership that they have from the centres available to them, from the Rugby World Cup squad. I don't think they're going to be. I honestly think that if Tuilagi is available, he's going to start at 13, and then 12 will be, whoever they feel like can bring the most out of him, I think, in that 13 channel. But I'm very excited to see these two guys play together, because I think they both kind of complement each other, and it's good to see them getting game time as well. Elliot Daly on the left wing as well. He's kind of, he's a player who, I think in an England shirt, certainly his kind of peak to this point at least is in the past, like when he scored some very memorable tries, but now I don't think he's at that level anymore. But again, it's good to see him getting game time. The 9-10 combination, I think, is going to be starters for the World Cup. Owen Farrell, I said a lot, he gets a lot of flack from people, but he's still a very good player. He's probably not a very likable player. He's kind of in that kind of, I'd compare him to Johnny Sexton in that regard, that like his personality, like that, just fighting for every decision and stuff like that, makes him not a very likable person if you are not from that nation. And even for a lot of English people, apparently with Owen Farrell too, but that he's going to give everything for the shirt. And he was a little bit wayward from the tee. He went away and worked on it and came back, and it seems like he's got that sorted. Jack van Poortvliet, I think, is going to be the starting nine in the Rugby World Cup. For me, he's still a little bit slow with his distribution, and he needs to pick that up, because England, it looks like with the squad they picked, not necessarily this team, but the squad they picked is based on having big men running at space, and if you've got slow ball, they're going to be not in their full run when they receive it as well. So he's going to have to pick up his delivery, I think. Front row then, we got Joe Marler, Jamie George and Will Stewart. So, I think Marler will probably be on the bench in the big games, I would imagine, but he's still, a decent player. Got plenty of chat as well, and he can wind up the opposition, which can, depending on, if things are going England's way, he really can get under the skin of the opposition and maybe eke out a little bit extra. If things are going against him, it tends to be a negative impact that he has. Jamie George, I think he's got to get his darts right in the line-out. I think, like a lot of the going into the Rugby World Cup, you want your starting hooker to be hitting his guy almost every time, and for any time that like line-out goes wrong, for it to be just really good disruption from the opposition, not because you're either overthrowing, which England tend to do a lot, and it's not like they're overthrowing as a tactic, because they seem to be very slow to react when they overthrow, even though they do it a lot. So hopefully they can sort that out. And, it's not just down to him. It's obviously down to time with the jumpers and stuff. But generally, the hooker does have still a lot of control of, where he's going to deliver the ball. And I think a lot of the time it is actually the hooker who's overthrowing for them. You got Will Stewart there, then probably not going to be certainly a first choice starter in the Rugby World Cup, so he's going to want to have a good game there. Maro Itoje, standout player, probably hasn't been at his best, certainly last season. This season, a little bit mixed, and England have been kind of switching up the players in that second row as well. Still don't see them having an actual settled second row combination. I think Itoje and Chesham is probably the closest to it, but still wouldn't say that they have the kind of understanding that maybe more settled teams do in that second row. George Martin there, don't see him as being a starter in the Rugby World Cup, certainly again as first choice, but somebody with something to prove. Courtney Laws, for me, I would play him in the second row, but I know that he's playing back row now, and that's where he's been picked, so that's where he's going to play unless there's some kind of emergency and he needs to switch. But him at 6, he can have a big impact, but I think for him in that role at 6, it's all about kind of that start. If he can actually get in there and affect the breakdown, and that's basically what he's been picked there at 6 for. Got Ben Earl there at 7 as well. Probably not going to be, I guess it depends on the balance of the back row, whether he's going to be a starter in the Rugby World Cup or not. Certainly in the mix for it, but the way I think with England and the back rowers is that you can pick, you can pick many different combinations together, but it's whether they actually sit nicely together as a combination. So he's got to prove, I think, between Laws and Vunipola that he can actually, work there at 7 and not detract from what the other two are doing, because I think Laws and Vunipola will probably make up 2/3 of the starting back row when everybody's fit. Vunipola there at 8. Everybody knows what Billy gives you. Give him the ball, he runs hard, and he's going to try for an offload. He generally doesn't try to pass before contact, which you'd obviously like that to be an option, because then the opposition have to kind of sit off a little bit. But when they know that he's not going to pass the ball before contact, what you're looking to do then is, with him, somebody come low and then somebody gets in over the ball to prevent that offload, and then maybe get a turnover is basically what you're trying to do. And you want to hit him early as well. You don't want to get up in getting up ahead of steam, which is why I think delivery from 9 being quick is very important for England. Onto the bench then, you got Theo Dan, who, he's kind of a recent-ish addition to England squads. Going to have a point to prove. Ellis Genge, I think, is going to be a starter in the World Cup. Dan Cole, like himself, and Jamie George, I think they're the two that are going to kind of switch in and out of that hooker jersey. We got Johnny Hill there. He shows that he can actually do a job in the second row. There was a point where he was maybe the prepared partner for Itoje, but I don't know whether that's true anymore. Jack Willis, who maybe himself and Earls are kind of finding out for one position if Laws and Vunipola are locked in that back row. And you got Ben Youngs, plenty of experience coming off the bench for him. George Ford, almost a forgotten man in the 10 jersey, because the debate always rages between Farrell versus Marcus Smith, and then Ford kind of gets forgotten about, but I think he's really good at running a backline. And I think the backline that's been picked there is perfect for a player like him. He's really good at bringing players into the game. So hopefully he gets 20 minutes or more in that game. And Max Malins, maybe he's actually going to be one of the starters on the wing in the Rugby World Cup. He certainly seems to be preferred there, at least at the moment. Okay, on to the Welsh team then. So you got Liam Williams, fullback. Himself and Halfpenny will battle out, but I think Williams will probably be the pick there. I think what it depends on is what form the starting wingers are in, because often we see that you'll have Williams playing on the wing when maybe the wingers aren't quite doing it, and you got Halfpenny there at the back. Instead, you got Josh Adams on the right wing. I think there's a lot of young wingers coming in now who are putting pressure on him, so he's got to show that he can still do it. centre combination. So you got Joe Roberts, uncapped, making his debut, partnered with Nick Tompkins. So, very inexperienced in that centre partnership, but, against Lawrence and Merchant there for England, I think, there are opportunities there, I think, for both centre combinations to stand out. Tom Rogers with just 2 caps from the Scarlets, he looks decent in the URC, but, got to produce it. Like we saw Rio Dyer coming from the Dragons and coming in, just absolutely tearing it up for Wales. So he certainly can do that. You got Owen Williams and Tomas Williams as the halfback pairing there. Wales, they were improved last week, but finding that what is their starting halfback pairing is going to be very big for them as well. I think there are a lot of options at 9 and a lot of options at 10. For them, it looked like, I'm not sure who's actually going to be the starter. Is it Williams? Is it Bigger? I think hopefully both get some decent time in this one, so you can have a kind of look at them. Front row, then you got Gareth Thomas, Dewi Lake, and Thomas Francis. So, fairly experienced there in the front row. So I think all of those guys will certainly be involved in match days 23s and probably starting as well. The second row, then you got Rhys Davis and Adam Beard. So I think Beard is a nailed on starter for the Rugby World Cup. Davis, just 2 caps to his name. So, but I think there's still a position up for grabs there next to Beard in that second row. Back row, then you got Dan Elliott, Tommy Reffel, and Tane Plumtree. Plumtree, he didn't come off the bench against England last week, I think. But other than Lydiot, a little bit inexperienced at test level for these guys. Reffel has looked decent at times for Wales, but we've seen like players, looking okay and then looking poor in defeats as well. So, but then you got to factor in the fact, that you got Jack Morgan is definitely going to come back into the team as well there. So, these guys are maybe trying to put their hands up for inclusion in matchday squads rather than maybe starting positions. Then you got replacements. So you got Sam Perry, probably going to be maybe third choice if he goes to the Rugby World Cup. Kemsley Mathias, uncapped for Scarlets, like you look decent in the URC, but you got to be able to do it at test level. Dylan Lewis from Quins with 50 cap to his name, he's shown he can do it before. It's just a case of getting that unit to work together and be effective, in the scrum and around the park as well. Then Christ Shunza, who his treatment in the Six Nations, like where he was in and then he was out, and so I'm not sure what's going on with that, but hopefully he can put his hand up for selection as well. Got Tame Basham there, another player who kind of drifts in and out of the squads as well. You got Kieran Hardy, one more great option at 9. I think Wales have a lot of very good scrum halves without one being that much better than the rest. I think that's what the problem is. Like, I think whoever gets left out will still be a decent scrum half, but you just don't have anyone who is saying this is my jersey, and he's got a chance off the bench to do that. You got Dan Beer there, 108 caps. You know what he can deliver for Wales, and coming on in the game. Whether he's going to come on to try and spark a comeback or whether it's to close out the game, we won't know yet. Then you got Kieran Williams there as well, uncapped, and he another one like at Ospreys looked decent at your sea level, but you got to make that step up. And with Rugby World Cup warm games, he might only get this one chance off the bench, so he really has to take it if he gets to come on. And looking at that Welsh backline, I have a feeling that we're going to see him fairly early in the game, that there's going to be some kind of knock that because there are a lot of kind of injury prone players, especially Liam Williams there, a fullback in that squad. So you might actually see him after maybe 20 minutes of the game. So if that happens, he then needs to absolutely take that with both hands and go for hell for leather for it. So in terms of then what do I think is actually going to happen in this game. So England have got home advantage. They got a bit of a spanking last week. They're going to want to, turn things around from that. So I expect a better performance from them, and maybe home advantage is just going to shade it for England. Wales, I'm not sure that the result is as important to them this week, having won already last week. So if they get a decent performance, to see some good combinations coming together and have a close defeat, I think, while obviously you want to win all of your games, I think that would still be a step forward for Wales. So I think England are maybe going to shade it by maybe a similar margin to last week, but on the scoreboard, but maybe like just one score maybe between them, but maybe the performances will be a little bit tighter in that respect.